Star Wars. Hey, welcome to the Cinema Club. It's Star Wars week. I'm wearing my Star Wars getup. You know what I'm saying? I'm the number one fan. And I'm here with my other hosts, JP Ceruno, Ayla, Raymond Arturo Perez, and El Don Dino, because Jason decided to skip and Naomi decided to drink. And we're going to be talking about the great 1977 film, Star Wars: A New Hope. It is the film that started it all. It is the film that Dino claims that it got ripped up by Akira Kurosawa. But hey, let's start with our first initial thoughts. And let's start with the person, with the mostest, the person that's been lost for a long time, Raymond Arturo Perez.
So this is my second time watching it ever in my life. Wow. And I think the first time, my first impressions were like, I was just expecting a lot because everyone loves it. And then watching it the second time, knowing what to expect, I think I appreciated it a lot more, and it holds up, and it was entertaining and exciting and action-packed. Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Now, by the way, I never said this. I picked this movie because I thought JP was going to seriously pick this film. And he didn't. He disappointed me. So I picked it for him. And that's why he did it. I also felt robbed about my pick, Life of Brian, back in the day. But that's another story for another day. Let's go with Michaela.
Well, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, it was one of the few things that I was like allowed to watch as a kid. It has like a really important place in like my sphere of like cinema mythology, and honestly, watching it this time, it really struck me how beautifully simple he managed to make it, and that's why it works so well. Like, you can't, like, when you do something simple, it's so easy to fuck it up. And he didn't fuck it up until later. And that's my first opinion.
Okie dokie. Dino!
All right. Cool. That's crazy. Raymond, you only watched this movie twice? I don't know how many times I've seen it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I remember seeing it. I probably first watched it in Spanish in one of the two canales that we had in Paraguay. So it was either SNT or El Trece. And as a little kid, what I remember the most, or what stuck into my head, is just the two droids, when their thing first lands, the escape pod lands, and then they are walking away. Just that image has stuck in my head as one of the first things I remember of Star Wars. So yeah, I've seen it a bunch. Like I said, Hidden Fortress, after I got into Akira Kurosawa and Toshiro Mifune and all that, you can really see where George Lucas got a lot of his motivations from, or his muse, if you will. And he's actually talked about it. He actually gives credit where credit is due, where he's, been inspired and stuff like that. So watching it this time, not so long ago, we watched Hidden Fortress. And so Hidden Fortress has been fresh in my mind. And now watching Star Wars, I was like, oh my God, there's so many more things that, are intertwined that I hadn't even thought about. So, yeah, I do like the film. What I was able to do is, like, since we're in our 70s genre, I really wanted to watch the 70s version of this film. Because we all know George Lucas is really pissy about what version of the original trilogy he allows his minions to watch. And there's a group of fans that are going around and finding old 35 millimeter prints and like scanning those. So I actually found one, the Project 4K one, if you guys out there in the interwebs are aware of it. And it was pretty surreal watching it. And with all its imperfections, I really enjoyed it, and it made me feel nostalgic to the yesteryears. So yeah, movie I enjoy. I'm sure I'm gonna watch it again at some point, and I like it.
Thank you, Dino. My first impression, initial thoughts of the film was I first of all had no idea there were different versions of this film. No clue, no idea. Because I was watching it on my flight from Panama, and I watched it. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. But then Dino sent me this version, right? And I started watching it, and I was like, "There's like more stuff here, like more scenes and more things that weren't in that other version." And also, one thing that happened to me was that in the scene where they are at that bar, like that they're trying to look for Han Solo and stuff, like there's like conversations that the creatures have with like people. And like in the first version I watched, the one on my flight from Panama, there were no subtitles. So I was just like, I whatever that dude said, you know what I'm saying? And then the one actually Dino sent me, it had the actual subtitles of what that person was saying. Like Jabba the Hutt is looking for you, motherfucker. You know, and like I didn't know none of those stuff, none of those things. So it was cool to watch different versions. You definitely appreciate the movie a lot more. Man, this movie is so iconic. I couldn't help but the moment I'm watching it, and I really think it's a combination of things: the stars and also the music. The music really makes this film a lot, and I couldn't help but the moment you're watching this movie, I was smiling like a little kid. I was like, "This is awesome! I'm so happy I'm watching this. I'm so happy we're gonna get to talk about this. I'm super happy about everything." But the first thing that we have to talk.
My initial thought.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. JP, go ahead with your initial thought. My bad.
Okay. I've seen Star Wars: A New Hope countless times, but this is my first time watching to at least what is close to what would have been the 1977 Star Wars. So it's crazy because like that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to pick it, because it's almost impossible to justify that version as a 70s movie because there's so much re-editing done to it. So watching this in basically its purest form, or at least close to, which by the way, use a VPN if you're not gonna buy a legit Laserdisc or a VHS to find these movies. It's morally questionable, ethically questionable, but that's neither here or there. But it's so funny because like when I watched the original one, I was shocked. Like, how was George like embarrassed or ashamed of this work? It still holds up pretty damn well. There is some wonky edits which I couldn't tell if it was because of the fans' recreation or if that's how the film was. But like, it's pretty damn good, and it's still the iconic scene. Like just everything about it is just so like 100% just top A+. So I look forward to reviewing the film in more detail later on the road. I'm gonna try to keep it as this one solo movie and not the fourth chapter in like a bunch of dumb chapters.
Thank you, JP. And my bad for almost skipping you. I legit had no idea. But let's talk about one of the topics that I've been wanting to talk about. And I'm sorry if I'm excluding Raymond a little bit with this one, but that is, and I'm also sorry for the viewers. You can fast forward this part if you don't care, but I care about this part. What did you see in this movie that you saw exactly Hidden Fortress? I still haven't seen the movie. I am going to see it, but I want to know what were the things that you were like, oh, that's from Hidden Fortress, straight up, right there.
Okay, I'll let someone, either Michaela or JP, go first, since I kind of already know the things, but I want to I don't know if they had seen Hidden Fortress or knew about it beforehand, so I'll let them go first.
I mean, I was like as someone who's really interested in cinema history, like it's something that's brought up a lot. When you like start talking, like when you find another cinephile and you start talking about Star Wars, like that's the first thing that comes up, just that they want to like prove that they're like legit. It's like, yeah, Hidden Fortress, absolutely. I mean, it has like a lot of similar structures in the fact that there's a princess that needs help, but she's not like a damsel in distress. She's very strong and she knows exactly what she needs to do to save her people and to save like the world, in this case the galaxy. There's just like a lot of like really like linear plot points that just match up.
Yeah, for sure the characters, like the secondary ones, for sure. Like of course the two guys in the beginning of the film and the film. This movie does start off with the story of R2 and C-3PO first. They're in the middle of a battle, you know, like they have nothing to do with everything that's going around them. They're just thrust into this thing. And like Michaela said, like, you know, Leia being very, you know, independent and very like snarky towards everybody. Like she takes no shits, and you know, you have poor Luke crying over an old dude, and she just lost her whole fucking home. It's like millions of people that she knew
soldiers.
they're gone. And you have Luke sulking, and she's comforting him. Like, oh my gosh. But that's whatever. But yeah, for me, it was definitely the characters that reminded me from that film.
Yeah, so to add on that, yeah, definitely the servants in the Hidden Fortress and the droids are almost identical, and some of the dialogue from the droids are almost close to verbatim of what the servants in Hidden Fortress talk about, and it's usually there's war, everything is going on alongside of them, and they're trying to survive, right? They're just like, this is horrible. They're like, their life is so horrible. And then they're super petty towards each other. R2-D2 and C-3PO are super petty to each other. The servants in Hidden Fortress, it's similar. There's also the whole idea of the Jedi Knights is very similar to samurais, right? Just that whole idea, and you have the lightsabers and the swords. What I will say, when we were talking about the Hidden Fortress, it was more closely related to the original script of Star Wars, which then actually George Lucas kind of broke off from it and did this one, and then Episode 1 is even closer to the Hidden Fortress than Star Wars The New Hope is to the Hidden Fortress. So a lot of the same kind of characters. And if you go to Episode 1, Qui-Gon, or the old samurai, if you will, following the young princess, and they even have a double in Hidden Fortress. The sister of the samurai becomes the double of the princess, and so definitely within the two movies, Episode 1 and New Hope, he takes a lot from Akira Kurosawa, not just Hidden Fortress, but there's a lot of that, and trying to find the hidden base, and so there are a lot of similarities, but definitely the main two are, the closest ones that are still in A New Hope are just the droids and the characters of the samurai and the mercenary, people doing things just for money, not for honor. They could care less who's in charge. And that's kind of what the servants also go back and forth, like, I'm just going to do the money. I'm going to sell them out. I'm going to do, And so you can see that in Han Solo at times. So there's a lot. Go watch Hidden Fortress, Steve Des.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm for sure gonna watch it. I was watching the review today, and I was like, I'm gonna watch Hidden Fortress. I said I was gonna watch it. I still haven't watched it. I'm gonna watch it.
It's
But
and then there's the giant samurai castle in the Hidden Fortress, and in the samurai castle there's this tiny little exhaust vent that they have to shoot an arrow while riding a horse, and they have to hit it just right, and that arrow is going to be able to go and ding, 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 and it's going to hit the powder reserves, and it blows up the castle. That's exactly what happened in the Hidden Fortress.
Dino's saying basically Star Wars got stolen from Akira Kurosawa. He's sticking to his statement. He's saying it. But before all the Star Wars fans hate us, let's talk about your favorite on-screen couple. You know, and we live in a new era, new age. It doesn't matter if it's guy, if it's guy, girl, if it's girl. It don't matter. I mean, we didn't see that much girl action really on Star Wars, but we did see guy, girl. You know, what was your favorite on-screen couple? It'd be R2D2 and C3PO. It could be Anakin and Obi-Wan. It could be, you know, Darth Vader and his minions. Who was your favorite on-screen couple? I want to start with Dino.
Man, you know, watching it again, there's so much going on. Like, I always knew there was kind of a love triangle going on between like Luke, Han, and Leia, but every time I watch it, I notice like new moments in their like relationship, and you know, and then like knowing, spoiler alert, Luke and Leia are siblings, so like knowing that that's also gonna come down the road. But this time specifically, so I'm just, you know, the droids, we can go all to that of it being kind of like the odd couple, but I'll go to this one specific moment when it's Luke and Han Solo in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and Luke is just like, so what do you think of her, or something like that, and then Han Solo is something like, so do you think there's any chance that a princess like her and someone like me, and no. Luke just cuts him off and is like, no, and then just like the facial expression that Han Solo like gives to him, like, oh, I see what's going on, like, I don't know, that whole kind of thing is fresh in my mind. I watched it earlier today, so I would say the relationship between Han and Luke, I'll go with that, of just how they're kind of that brotherly thing, but at the same time they're both like, I call dibs on her type of thing going on, that in past watches I didn't recognize. The Empire has surveillance going on outside. Do you guys hear that?
Nope. Oh, I guess.
Oh my God! What's going on?
The Empire is building a building next door, so they have some droids that keep a lookout if anyone tries to break in. Anyway, so especially when I was younger and as a kid watching it for the first time, I definitely would have not caught the whole idea of like two bros being like, so what do you think about her? Yeah, you think? Oh, yeah, you're not interested? Oh, she's kind of growing on you, but not that way? Okay, cool. Yeah. Same here. We're cool. We're just friends. I like that. That relationship I hadn't noticed before.
Yeah, you didn't know where he was going.
Oh, my. That scene, though, is so... Because I want to touch on that scene, too. It's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, but also feels so out of place for Star Wars. It's like, because like you don't even have to know that Luke and Leia are related, but like that, I think that was one of the few moments in the film where you're like, everyone can be like, yes, because there's nothing fantastical or anything crazy about, like, that's real. Like we've all had that talk with our buddies where it's like, oh, we have the same crush. Well, you shouldn't even try, bruh. You should, out of your league, bruh. I'm so sorry. But the delivery was just so on point that, you know, it's one of my favorite lines in the whole series. But for me, like the power couple, this is my bias speaking, because I know I said like I'm trying to review the film as its own thing, but it has to be R2 and C3PO. They're in almost every movie. Like they play you see their relationship grow in like the additional like the cartoons and the comics, and and it all started from this movie, and you get a clear idea. Like, it's funny, you don't need to know what R2 is saying through his beeps and boops, but you know what he's feeling. Like, you know exactly that he's like he's the top to C-3PO's bottom, like.
That's love, man. Not having to say words.
It's so great, and whenever they're both on screen, it's just purely magical. It really is, and it's a shame that they're not as utilized in like the newer trilogies. Like, I'm talking about the prequels and the sequel trilogy that Disney made. Like, it's one of so many missed opportunities, because that was one of the greatest things about this film, was that we got to start off this movie with just two somewhat insignificant characters, but they have that big of an impact. So it has to be, for me, it's C3 and R2D2.
Raymond.
So I think, like, this time watching it, because I know what's going on. The first time I watched it, first off, I was 27. So I watched it maybe
last year?
Like 2 or 3 years ago? Yeah. So this time I was just watching it and being like, like I think someone mentioned when Princess Leia's like planet gets destroyed, how like unaffected people are. And then like the other thing, I don't even know if that's her planet, but the planet that gets destroyed that like Leia was trying to salvage.
Yeah.
The other thing was like Luke being like, I want to be in the academy, like all my friends are there, and then we're seeing that last sequence where he's about to like beat the Death Star, and like tons of the people that are in the academy that I'm assuming he grew up with are just like getting roasted in front of him. And I just, as I was going through it, I was like, there's so much baggage and trauma here that could like be like a really dark version of what's going on right now, and how he like responds to that. But we just cut to him getting like his medallion, and so I was like just looking for opportunities where like trauma and drama could be pulled out. And one of the relationships I thought was really fascinating, and I don't know if this is covered in any of the sequels or spin-offs, but like Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, like if there is a possible gay like underlying romance, that could be it.
I definitely noticed that too this time around. Like, I hadn't really noticed, and I've seen the prequels and most of the cartoons, but this time as like old men, like I was like, oh, these are vibes that I had not noticed before.
And I think there could be like some real stuff to get into there.
Yeah.
Does the animated show, The Clone Wars, touch on those two characters at all?
The show does a better job of fleshing out their relationship than the movies ever did. The movies, like, that was another missed opportunity from the prequels, is that you do see that they have a love and a connection for each other. But the TV show, The Clone Wars, was like, it was that plus 10. so it's
possible.
Yeah, well,
Jedi's are celibate.
Who's celibate?
There's some in the lore and the canon, but
So are Mormons.
Yeah. Darth Vader had his lady.
Not the Mormons.
Obi-Wan had his lady.
That out.
So
I rescind that.
Jesuits or whatever. But again, we gotta also. This is a thing that's why I like that Raymond has. This is only like his second time watching it, because it's such a different perspective on it. And hold on, like somehow I didn't have this connected. But the thing that we gotta think about is that the Clone Wars, the cartoon, the prequels, all that, so much came from just one or two lines, right? Like, it was literally Luke being like, "You know my father?" Or, "Yes, we fought in the Clone Wars years ago." Right? That was it.
I noticed that this time, and I paid attention.
Yeah, and that was it. So then, like, everyone who became a super fan, it's like, what are these Clone Wars, right? So that's the impact of just, like, this movie alone. There were a lot of, like, throwaway lines. Or, George might have had, like, a background or whatever. But, like, if we're just talking about just this movie as its own, it was one line that then was like, I guess we could do a whole movie about it. I guess we could do a prequel about it. And then let's go into the cartoons.
So just to add to that, so I noticed that too. Like, oh, they just threw this line and it made a whole movie.
Yeah.
Do you think they did it with that in mind, or was the response of the fans was like so huge that they were like, oh, we gotta give it?
You know what?
112%. This was not supposed to go past Star Wars. This was gonna be like something he made, got out of his system, and then he was gonna do something else with his life.
It's crazy the amount of stuff that George actually had in mind. Like, legit, like, had manuscripts and like just little Bibles of where he knew what he wanted, and then stuff that meant nothing, that somehow became a bigger deal in the later stories and movies. It's actually kind of frustrating when you realize, like, what was important to him and then what wasn't.
You also have to think about, so again, this is pre MCU, this is pre Fast and the Furious, it's all about family. We got now a franchise, right? Like, Jaws had just come out a few years before, which meant it was the summer blockbuster had just become a thing. And the other thing was George Lucas was actually trying to make a Flash Gordon movie, and what the studio was like, who owned Flash Gordon, was like, yeah, we don't want you to do our movie. So that's what he was then kind of transitioned. Well, I guess I have this idea. So it was this weird kind of thing where he had an idea for like this for a Flash Gordon movie that got struck down, and he just kind of shifted it and kind of combined it with his other ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole thing with Jedi Knights is they all have, it was like a master and an apprentice, right? So there are some lines that are a little confusing in the movie, because it's not, at times I was like, oh, that's interesting. That doesn't quite make sense of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin being like, there were a few lines that clearly, at least to me watching it this time, I was like, oh, that doesn't line up with the episode 1 or episode 2 kind of scenario, which again is, after years, when you add to something, stuff might not always line up correctly. But yeah, the Jedis have this huge bond between master and apprentice, so whatever you want to, and they're celibate, so they spend a lot of time together, of just the two of them.
You would have thought that.
Just to clarify, in case you don't take it out of this video, I was talking about the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon, being celibate while you're on missionary trips. That's what I was referring to.
So the musical, not the actual Mormons.
Correct. Just clarification, in Storyland, the Book of Mormon exists.
If it makes you feel better.
I'll still post it without the clarification.
No.
And we'll cut this part out.
No.
He'll just cut out this part where you're trying to clarify.
It'll be
and then it's like, it's like you'll edit out the words of me like trying to protect myself and just say the damage.
I'll be like, Mormons are gay. And,
Oh my god!
And then I put JP saying they're the top to its bottom. And,
segueing. Other thing I noticed was like in the new movies, Oscar Isaac's character, I don't know, but he's wearing those orange jackets, and I think watching it the first time, I don't even know if those movies were out yet, but that blends in the background. And now having seen the like promotional photos with Oscar Isaac, I'm like, oh wow, like even that had a place in this movie, and they've somehow extracted that and made it its own thing.
Not only, let me add a little thing there, Raymond. So you know the people fighting in the planes, pew 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 pew, right? In I believe it's in Rogue One. I might be mistaken. It might be one of the other ones. They had a bunch of like extra footage of those same fighter guys.
It was really cool.
And they added that into the Rogue One, because the Rogue One film that came out basically ends right where A New Hope begins, right? And so some of the fighter pilots that die in A New Hope, they still were able to use their like deleted footage or extra footage and pasted it into Rogue One.
And they turned Peter Cushing into a zombie.
Who? What?
I saw that name in the credits.
He played the English posh bad guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the CGI
a man
one.
who died in '96 is somehow in a movie made in 2015. Isn't that fun?
That's a little creepy.
GPS called technology.
2015? No, I was like 2018. I don't know.
We were together at that point.
Bam, bam, ba-da-ba-bam, bam, ba-da-ba-bam, bam. I got my fighter pilot jacket.
There you go.
I want to dress up as don't even know her name.
Leia?
New
The
one.
aunt.
One.
Oh, in Rogue One, I was like, there are only 2 women in Star Wars. And it's hard for Luke because it's like one of them is your aunt, you know, step aunt even, right? Not related, and the other one is your sister, and so it's like you end up actually crushing on your sister. Good for you, Luke.
The step aunt is Ray.
No. The step aunt
Beru
in the movie.
This movie, who in the prequels magically becomes unrelated to Luke. So isn't that fun, ladies and gentlemen? Whatever. I don't care.
Yes, you do.
They make them sound so close, and then you find out they're not even related. It's like, what the fuck was that? Now we're talking about Star Wars, just the movie. My bad.
You know how I mentioned there was going to be a can of worms, Des?
Oh, those are the lines that kind of didn't make sense with the rest of the lore. And I don't know, because this time I watched from the 35 millimeter print from 77 or wherever, that the conversation that the uncle and the aunt were having about Obi-Wan and about his father and all that, was a little weird.
No, it's still in there. They didn't cut that out in the re-releases or in the special editions. So it's all purely just like George Lucas not knowing what fucking Star Wars is. That's it.
So again, this is my second time and being more like aware of the Star Wars world or whatever. And I don't think I tried to watch the version that you sent out. I couldn't get it, so I watched probably like a really terrible version, doctored and everything. And I also noticed that, like in the version that I watched, that Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker are talking, and he's explaining, which I just took it as like he must be lying then consciously about like losing his friend and then Darth Vader being a separate entity. I'm like, yes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't talking about that.
There's a famous line in the third movie where Obi-Wan is telling the truth, but from a certain point of view. So it's fixed later on in the original trilogy.
I was talking about Luke's uncle and aunt that he that he grew up with. They were talking about Obi-Wan and about Luke's and about Anakin, and it was weird how some of the phrasing was to what later came on to what came before.
Yes.
You know,
because they made it seem like they were all a close family, and that Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen were at least much more knowledgeable in Anakin becoming a Jedi
right.
and being taught by Obi-Wan. But in the prequels, they're basically secondary characters to nothing.
Secondary characters?
Like because they're in the second and third movie, but
Where
not
are they
really.
for seconds?
They went back to Tatooine to before, I don't even want to talk about it. But it was a missed opportunity. Like, there's in this original movie, there's so much history, but it's never explored, and it's basically absent in the prequels.
That is whatever, right? Because you don't know. I'm just saying it's a little weird. The only line I think for me that is hugely just like WTF is when Obi-Wan is like, your dad wanted you to have this. When he hands him the lightsaber, which, spoiler alert, Anakin kills a bunch of kids with. And at that point also, like...
3000.
Huh?
I said the Youngling Slayer 3000.
Right, exactly. But that's clearly, it's clearly a white lie from Obi-Wan, because it is one of those things of like, wait, Anakin doesn't know that his kids survived. Like Anakin, there's no way Anakin, when you see the other movies, at no point is like, oh yeah, give this lightsaber to my boy, will ya? Because Jedi's... Anyway, so that's the only way you can kind of explain that, is saying like, yeah, it was a white lie from Obi-Wan trying to keep the image of his friend alive in a good way. But
the continuity of this franchise makes Jurassic Park look fucking gold. So
no, I wouldn't say. I say it did pretty good. Again,
there's just it's so hard to like make logic of like so many inconsistencies regarding all the stories fit together. I mean, somehow it does kind of work, but there's just a lot of like, man, this is stretching it.
But like, I mean, that just shows how much they really thought this was gonna like explode. Like when they first made this, they thought this was just gonna be like something that a couple like really niche people were gonna watch, and that was gonna be it. They didn't expect it to blow up, to the point where there was like such an appetite. Which is, I mean, and like with that kind of pressure, like I'm sure that's like part of why George is always changing, is because he was just like, oh no, I created something huge, so I have to make sure it's always the best it can be. Which I mean doesn't was justified, but I think that's part of his thinking.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I want to go into what was the most shocking thing for you about this particular film. For me, was the journey of Luke Skywalker. Because to me, at least to me, it felt like he went from, I'm just some regular kid wasting my time, to like, I'm now like a super Jedi dude that can just use the Force and do all this stuff. Like it was like a massive jump to me. It didn't feel like it was like building like that crazy. It was like he just went like, let's do it, fuck it. So to me, that was the most shocking thing. To you guys, what was the most shocking? Anybody can go ahead.
I want to hear Raymond, just because he's only watched. And also, Raymond, answer Steve's question, but also answer me. Have you seen all the prequels? Episode 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. So basically, when I turned 27, I think I think the first iteration of the 7th film of the franchise was going to come out. So my boyfriend at the time and I both hadn't watched any Star Wars films, and we were both in our late or whatever 20s.
Wow, you guys.
So we binge watched all 6 together. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and that was a journey. And I remember watching the 4th one, and again, being like, this is Star Wars. This is the thing that like everyone's been raving about all throughout film school and high school and middle school and elementary school. This must be like the best thing ever. And I watched episode 4 for the first time, and I was like, oh, like the credits started rolling, and I was like, wait, that's it? And so I was very, very shocked. And then watched episode 5, and for at least me and my boyfriend, episode 5 was fire. We were like, oh shit, like had we watched 4 and 5 like when it came out, or like when we were younger, or whatever the scenario is, in this make-believe past, we would have, I'm sure, geeked the fuck out. But we were like in our
I was like, you weren't even alive by the time it came out.
Right. So like if we were alive and we were kids at the time, I could see, or even adults at the time, I could see how like I would be totally whisked away by like how fantastical it is. But I think I just passed that moment. And so but watching the second film that came out was like amazing, and I was like, I can appreciate through this film what I think everyone appreciates as a whole. And then watch the third film, and we're like, okay, so maybe three like hits isn't always possible, but maybe the prequels will be good. And then we started watching the prequels, and we're like, maybe after the first one it gets back, like the second one's as good as the second one in the original. And they were like, oh no, how did people, it must be just that like you watch the first 3 and then you're just like, I'm gonna ride this train. And so we watched the second one, and then we watched the third one, and then the new movie came out. Just like, look at us, like we just caught up with the rest of the world, we're ready. We both fell asleep in the theater. We fell asleep,
And after that, you were no longer together. Got it.
basically, and that was the reason why we broke up.
George Lucas!
No, they fell asleep at Force Awakens. That was on Disney.
Can I just say, Force Awakens? Oh man, that real quick, because I saw it in the theaters, and it was packed, and it was down in San Diego, packed, bunch of Latinos, bunch of our raza, and there must have been like a 4-year-old kid like sitting next to me, you know. And that movie starts very similar to A New Hope, right, where you just kind of see the desert and you see someone all like covered up, and that little kid for like the first 20 minutes, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And the dad's like, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. Who's that? And you see like BB-8 or whatever. Who's that? And it's like, we don't know yet. It's like, I was about ready to like, just watch the movie. No one knows. This is the first time. Anyway, but yeah, just wanted to throw that in real quick. So yeah, Raymond, I don't know, did you answer Steve's question of the biggest? Well, I've already forgot what the question.
The biggest shock is that he fell asleep during fucking Force Awakens.
Yeah, but I guess the biggest shock for me coming into it, again, being just kind of like maybe the devil's advocate of the group, was just like I have watched and like read some stuff just to kind of be a little bit more in the know and critical, and just like be like, oh, this is part of the Star Wars lore and the world, whatever. As the scroll was coming up this time, and they were like, I just went to like U.S. imperialism, and I was like, do we really trust the like resistance? And is like Darth Vader really the most terrible person? I don't know, y'all. I think there's something else deeper going on here. Anyone who claims to be the protector of freedom, like, against who, and who's the oppressed, and like, do we believe you? And if you're telling history, are you the conqueror? Anyway, so that was kind of like a shock that they use the word freedom when now we associate that with so much baggage. And then the second thing, which is not so much a shock for me, but I remember, and I could have this way wrong, so if you guys correct me, I'm totally on board. But someone was saying something about like they like mapped out the timeline of all the films, and they were saying like at the time, based on what's now been released and what we know about Star Wars, a lot of civilians are supposed to be on the Death Star takes place, and so when supposedly, so when Luke Skywalker, or is that not true?
You're breaking up.
Your feed was breaking up, but I got enough of it to at least get what you were saying. Okay, so I guess if you want to see through the eyes of Darth Vader in his fucking Halloween spirit mask, Luke Skywalker is a terrorist. And yes, he blew up a lot of civilians who were enlisted into the Imperial Army of the Republic. Whether or not they were innocent is up to you.
Because also,
yeah,
I will add,
in the eyes of the Empire, Darth Vader, Tarkin, and the Emperor. Yeah, all these rebels are a bunch of fucking no good, troublemaking terrorists, and they blew up their big death machine filled with a lot of innocent recruits.
I will say yes, you're correct. But it was because that's what always comes up, right? Like, look at all the innocent people that got killed and all that. I was like, they just blew up a planet. They literally just blew up a planet. So watching it this time, it's like, I'm sorry. If you're in that Death Star, you guys just blew up a planet. You saw it. You might have been innocent, but I can't be like, oh, boo-hoo. Like you guys just blew up a whole planet.
True. But
you had to
hear me
know what
out.
it was for.
Hear me out, because just say the link because I thought it was really good. They like go off for a while, but I think the other thing they mention is that like the reality is, and having seen that clip that we shared about Carl Sagan calling out the whiteness in the film, I go, what is like a lot of the workers on the Death Star who had nothing to do with blowing up the planet but are just being forced to do like minimum wage job on the Death Star, like cleaning up the ship, upkeep, all this stuff. I'm like, there's something there, y'all.
There is. Can I jump?
There's a good movie called Clerks.
I don't know.
That touches upon this.
I don't know this.
Yeah,
he's been. It's Family Guy has done bits on it, and Robot Chicken, and a lot of pop culture has brought up the whole idea of just like the regular Joes that are working in the Death Star and like what their life is, and you know. Let me jump back into you talked about colonialism and imperialism and all that. I saw in some documentary, or it's come up a bunch as well, and it's really interesting because I hadn't thought about it, that this movie is huge all around the world, and even in places like in the Middle East and all that, and they love it. And it's like, an American film, and they're like, yeah, who do you think they see themselves in? They see themselves as a rebel fighting the Empire. Right. And so they see the U.S. as the Empire and them as trying to free themselves. So, yeah, you bringing that up, Raymond, is completely true of just like, yeah, like, who is good, who is evil, like, who, you know, at what point. Clearly, when you get the whole lore of, and then they end up flushing out, you know, the whole stories, you're definitely more towards the... Huh?
Just still confusing.
That's still confusing?
No, because like Clone Wars, like it starts off with like the Separatists and the Republic, and then they end up switching.
Yeah.
Through. So they're all the same, anyways.
Yeah. Well, the Jedis aren't all that great either. Because I see the Jedis a little bit like they're all kind of like Jesuits, right? Like we just go in and we're all peace and love, hombres. But then it's like, no, you're killing people left and right with your lightsabers.
So also, can we talk about, real quick, because you just reminded me, can we talk about those bar scenes? Because in that bar in particular, we saw 2 deaths. and people were like, "Yeah, it happened. Let's keep it moving." And when I was in Colombia, I almost witnessed a murder. Thank God it didn't happen, but I almost saw a guy get stabbed right in front of me. And then the party continued, and everything was fine. So these are things that actually happen in like day-to-day life.
No, that
So-
felt very real. Like, mind your own business and you won't get brought into it. Which is great.
Well,
The hive
well
of scum and villainy.
huh?
I caught that line this time, and I was like, "That's so good." And
Which
also,
line?
scum and villainy.
Oh,
The hive of never will you find such a hive of scum and villainy.
And I also recently went to the Star Wars Land. Is that what it's called?
yes.
At
Let's call it
Disneyland.
Star Wars Land.
What's it called?
I think that's what it is. Star Wars. Oh no! Fucking they gave it a stupid ass name. A Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge. That's what they called it.
It's dope. Like, seeing this again and having visited it recently, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And I went into the bar. What's the bar called?
Cantina.
The Cantina. And it's super cool. I was just like shocked. It's like really, really dope that they were able to like bring it into
Mos
IRL.
Eisley Cantina.
That is the
I can't remember who the costumer was. I saw also a really cool documentary on YouTube recently about the guy. He did a bunch. He's like super renowned in just like monster creations and all that.
Is
And
this the guy who did Wolfman?
I think so. I believe so.
I
And-
didn't know what you were talking about, and I may have also watched that documentary.
And he was like super young, and they were filming the Mos Eisley Cantina scene, and they wanted more and more like creatures or whatever, and so that's why, especially if you see the older version, the 1970s, there's some like really shitty masks. There's some like really shitty monsters, and that's because he was like. They were just like last minute, like, we need more monsters, we need more aliens, whatever. And he was like, I have these. Like, it was just like the very first stuff that he had made that they were just like, yeah, we need more, we need more. And so like that's why the quality of a lot of the like aliens in the cantina and in that first movie are like really, you know, compared to what came later and what we see as like, you know, really spooky or whatever. It was definitely lower end of just, you know, spirit Halloween store.
That I think it's great that John Williams found a sound for an alien jazz band that fucking bopped. Like, that was a great. That's a great scene. It was just a great scene in general.
Isn't it just like it's one song in loop over and over?
Yeah,
Is it?
Their instruments kind of look like camera equipment.
It could be. Well, there's clearly an oboe in there.
Also, wasn't correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I heard through the grapevine that like Harrison Ford wasn't necessarily an actor before this film. He was actually a carpenter, and he auditioned last minute or something, and he got the role.
He was a carpenter who helped make sets, and his first film credit was also through George Lucas through American Graffiti. And the reason why he's in this movie was that George really liked Harrison, so he said, I need to find 3 new actors. Can you read for every one of them? And for the majority of them, especially for Luke's and Leia's parts, he read as Han for both characters. And they couldn't find a better person to play Han other than fucking Harrison. I think the person who was gonna originally get the role, or George's number 2 choice, was Kurt Russell, I believe was his number 2. So in some other universe, there's Kurt Russell who is playing Han Solo.
Yeah, there were always other people also, maybe not for this one, but like also for Indiana Jones. Burt Reynolds was like high up there, but he had to keep his mustache for like Magnum PI or whatever, right? So that was kind of like a deal breaker. So yeah, Harrison Ford was doing. He was a carpenter on sets and stuff like that early on, but he was trying to act as well. It wasn't so much that he was just making cabinets. Oh yes, I can come read for you. But yeah, it was one of those. They couldn't find the fit either due to scheduling conflicts, or and he just kind of fit that part.
He does amazing. I was watching it and I was like, oh yeah, like it's dope. Oh wait, we're talking about Harrison Ford. I meant, Harrison Ford does great too, but watching Luke this time around, I was like, oh, this is great casting. Like, this is so dope.
Mark Hamill.
You know what I will say redeems Haitian Christensen? Hayden?
Christensen.
Anakin. You know what kind of redeems him of my hate for those movies? Is watching Luke. And I'm like, oh, Luke was just as whiny as Anakin was. I guess.
I was going to go to Tashi Station to pick up some power converter.
So I was like,
you don't believe in the Force, do you?
but he has that like 80s. I know the 70s, but like 80s kind of like Back to the Future. He's like an underdog. He's like the nerd, but like crushing on the really beautiful princess, whatever.
The ingenue.
And it's that in that regard, I'm like, oh, that seems like that was the perfect casting. And then playing against Harrison Ford, who has such like bravado and kind of charisma, I'm like, this is so good.
Like Luke grows into it. Even in the end of this movie, he definitely grows into it.
Yes, he does.
Which is a great, transformation.
Yeah, but Harrison Ford in American Graffiti is maybe in the movie 5 minutes, and has, I think, like 2 lines or 3 lines. He plays his. He's like the kid or the guy from out of town that comes with his like drag racing. It's basically the Fast and the Furious before that's what American Graffiti is, and Harrison Ford is the Vin Diesel guy. Only he has a cowboy hat and he's the villain, and has like 3 lines. So,
okay, for this next one, I want you to pick one of these 2 characters and talk about one particular scene that you liked about one of these 2 characters. Either Chewbacca, the miraculous Wookiee, or Darth Vader. Let's start with Michaela.
Oh my gosh. I think this was like the first time I really noticed like the physical relationship between like Han Solo and Chewbacca. Like I didn't realize that like they were so physically comfortable with each other. Like Han pets him multiple times.
That was the first for me too. And when Obi-Wan's like goes out to try to find the thing, Chewbacca's like, no. It's like, yeah, you said it, Chewie. Where'd you pick up this fucking geezer? He leans on Chewbacca. He leans on him. And I was like, damn, this man is very close to his dog. Sorry.
Wait, Chewbacca's supposed to be a dog?
No, that's
Oh.
the joke. That's the joke.
But I did notice that when they're like coming out of the smuggling, compartment, and they're kind of talking, and then last minute, Chewie just like pops out of it as well, and does his, or that's a horrible Chewie sound. I can't do it right now. And then Han Solo like pets him on the head, and I'm like,
I caught that. I was like,
I lost it because I've never noticed that before. That all of a sudden I'm like, Han's just like flat out petting Chewie's head, and how much more Chewie came off as more of a comic relief than I had noticed before. Right?
Yeah. And honestly, and you can't not talk about Darth Vader when you're talking about Star Wars. Like, talk about an iconic villain. Like, just like visually, like the way.
What were your thoughts on the voice?
I mean, Are we gonna get into this, babe? You know, because like I'm sure that you're very familiar with like the whole
David Prowse and James Earl Jones. I mean,
In
David
the-
Prowse was
I
the
was
actor.
paying attention.
What's up?
I was paying attention to, again, just the credits and random shit. And for the credit of Darth Vader's voice, there's, I think, 6 people listed in the version that I watched.
Who
Damn.
were they? 6
No,
people?
those I think those were all doubles, because I know that James Earl Jones is not credited in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. He's only credited in the last movie, Return of the Jedi.
Oh, really?
So are you saying that they credited future Darth Vader's
No.
voices?
No, like basically they credited the guy who was in the suit.
And
No. They actually, so because I was curious about that. They credited Darth Vader, the suit, the man in the suit, with like Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker, and then later they credit, at least in the version. So the version I watched, for the record, is the one that's streaming on Amazon Prime right now. And in that version, they have a separate credit for Darth Vader's voice, and it lists, I think, 5 or 6 people, and James Earl Jones is on there.
okay,
He's not
so
in the suit, but in the voice.
Yes.
it's probably, I'm going to assume it's all the audio mixers or whoever was.
Okay.
Like I know Ben Burtz, I think that's his name. He's a famous sound designer. He was the one that basically figured out a way to make the breathing sound effect for Darth Vader. So I'm betting that's who they credited in the film. But
I mean, it.
One of them was just the.
Yeah.
So one was. The other guy was the.
But it's so great. Like James Earl Jones as Darth Vader is just so fucking fantastic.
Right.
But the funny thing is, David Prowse did not know that he was gonna have his voice redubbed. So when you see there's several scenes where the action do not at all mix with what's coming out of Vader's mouth. Like there's one moment where Tarkin says, "Leia, she lied to us," and Vader's line is, "I told you she's not to be trusted." But it came off like this: "I told you she's not to be trusted." It's what's with that delayed fist clench, you know?
I didn't notice the fist clench at all.
I just looking at Darth Vader's scenes, especially the second time, because I watched this movie twice, like on my way from Panama and then out here I watched it once. I looking back that second time watching, I was like, I just want to make a lot of sketches with Darth Vader. Like, you just have to put him in situations. That's it. Like,
Sure.
with the powers, with the whole choking thing,
With the
What's,
delay in
the
speaking.
breathing stuff. Imagine him going on a Tinder date, and
What-
then
Watch Robot Chicken. They do a lot
Oh my
of
God,
Darth
yes.
Vader stuff.
Just tons of robot checks.
There's even this. There's this voice actor now who is Lucasfilm's second. If James Earl Jones is not available, they'll hire this guy, and he got the job because he made a mini web series on YouTube back when YouTube, like this is 2005, like OG YouTube. He made a thing called Chad Vader, where it's Vader. Yeah, he works at a grocery store, and Lucasfilm gave him the number 2 spot, like whenever they do video games and cartoons, for him as the second because of that.
That's
Well,
wild.
I mean, but that just
Right?
goes to show you like how Darth Vader is like the quintessential like Hollywood villain. Like he was campy even in the 70s, but in such a right way. Like you can see his lineage through like the cave, through like Dracula and all of like you can see the lineage all like accumulating to the perfect
the
baddie.
darkness in his eyes, it looks like a skull. He has a fucking Nazi kettle hat.
Yeah. Like he literally he's just such a quintessential like a bad guy that only Hollywood can come up with, and I think that's just why he's so loved.
I also love how he kind of watching it again and again, trying to watch the closest version to what was in theaters. He's not even like the number one guy in this movie. It's the other dude. Like, yeah, he's just like the psychopath, basically, you know. And so that to me was just like, oh yeah, he wasn't automatically the head honcho. And at the same time, I like how his mask and all that, clearly it was more grimy. At least, again, the version that I watched that wasn't the Blu-ray, that wasn't the specialized or whatever, which I think they've since gone and touched up more of his appearance. I just like that. Like, I like that. Again, what I like is seeing the griminess of a 1970s film, right? Like when I'm watching the westerns, when I'm watching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or Once Upon a Time in the West, or whatever. Like, yeah, you can clean up the footage, but leave it, let it be, let it breathe like it was originally. Not like, don't clean up. You can maybe clean up the graininess, or if there's freaking, if there's a hair in the lens, or, shit like that. Yeah, go ahead and clean it. But, like, don't get rid of the imperfections of the characters, of what, because that's what made it so great in that time. And it still works, I think.
And I also think we really should talk, like, I think what really made me fall in love with Star Wars was, like, the actual aerial scenes. Like, I think this was something that, like, watching this time, I just realized how beautifully shot those miniatures were. And, like, that's, like, how I fell in love with Star Wars, was, like, that battle scene where they're taking on the Death Star and, like, they show the ship. Because, like, you don't see a lot of, like, actual, like, footage like that anymore.
No.
You don't see, like, battlescapes quite to that effect, like, which is why sometimes, like, I miss in the newer ones is, like, you don't see those battle sequences.
Because the camera's all up on the actor and the backgrounds are completely blurry. And plus, like, as nice as these, like, fucking PlayStation images are, most of them will kind of hook you in. Like, they're colorful, but then you see these, like, you see the miniatures, you see the Death Star, like, from the big sphere, and, like, when they're in the trenches, that looks real. You could tell that someone made that. And they fucking great.
They pay attention as much to whatever, like, to the speed and the fighting as much as they do the slowness and, like, majestic. And so, like, that was something that's struck me too watching it this time around. It was like, you see the Death Star and then you see, like, the ship coming into focus of the camera, and you're like, this feels realistic. You're going slow, and the distance between one object versus the other moving, it's like not everything is like high speed, not everything's like super in focus versus out of focus, and there's something about it that feels more real, even if they are miniatures. And the other thing too that really popped out, and I think I see now that I recognize where it's from, is just like the decision to have two suns as, like, the backdrop when Luke is looking out, and then they even cut to zoom in on the two suns. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. And John Williams' piece, like, when it starts, like, there's no dialogue in that scene whatsoever. It's purely the audience is relying on the scenery, Mark Hamill, and whatever music is playing in the back, and all of it worked. So I get emotional every time I see that scene. It's just I make fun of that scene like a fucking asshole all the time, but it's so fucking beautiful. Like, it's that scene. Oh, it's It's Italian kiss.
Well, no, and it's just like it's something that really is lost nowadays. Like, because like even in that battle scene, they take the time to actually show you the individual ships fighting each other. Like it's like watching one of the characters. You know, like that's why the X-Wing and like the TIE fighters are so iconic because we get to know these ships.
Which is why I'm like, why is Luke not like just shattered to pieces? Like, because we do get up close and personal with some of the fighters, and I'm like, this is someone he grew up with. Like, they were probably like, you know, playing jump rope and playing tag when they were growing up.
He's a little. Well,
you know, shooting right from their T-16s.
he talks about the friends going to the academy, but I don't know if that's the academy for the rebels or if it's the academy of the Empire.
I actually do have an answer for that.
I don't want to hear it.
In the
I do. Wait, that's crazy.
In the lore and in the original cut of the film, the original cut of the film, and this is the cut that no one has ever seen. This isn't the one that got out to theaters in 1977. Because the one that Raymond saw, the newer one, the scenes that you're talking about were actually not even in 1977. Those were added scenes in the re-releases. So it's funny, like there's even more history there. But Biggs, who is Luke's friend, who ends up dying at the Battle of Yavin, he and most of his friends, they're sent to the academy for the Empire, but then they deserted and they joined the rebellion instead. So the academy that Luke wanted to go to in the beginning of the movie was technically an imperialistic academy, but all his friends, they went there and then they deserted.
That's cool. I like that. Drama there. Like I totally want to.
But I will say he's really young, so PTSD doesn't necessarily hit that very day. It's gonna come back later in life.
Why do you think Mark Hamill was a sad piece of shit in the Disney trilogy?
Yeah. Or when he starts seeing all the
murders.
All the what murders?
Child murders? Round two?
When Friend killed all his buddies. When Adam Driver killed all his best friends for a lie.
Or
it's
him
the Jarhead.
Imagine
the Jarhead
him later.
What?
It's the Jarhead movie of Star Wars.
Yeah, basically. Him going to sleep knowing that he blew up, again, innocent people that were just janitors and, you know, they were just there mopping up after fucking Darth Vader, you know. So.
After fucking Darth Vader? Wow. What type of movie are you watching?
Oh my god!
So, yeah, Raymond, you watched the version that has Han Solo talking to Jabba the Hutt, right? Before they get on the spaceship. Yeah, that's not in the original.
Which makes
that.
So there was a deleted scene in the original. It didn't make it to the movies, where it's Han Solo talking to Jabba, but Jabba was just a regular person named Jabba the Hutt. And they cut it out because it was like, we don't need it. And so then when they did the re-release back in 97, and Georgie couldn't keep his fingers away from the computer, decided like, oh, look what we can do. We can now Photoshop Jabba the Hutt into this deleted scene, and you know what George loves to do? Let me paste over or take over someone's audio, someone's face, and just get them. It must have been someone that he hated, because then whoever played Jabba the Hutt in that original one is now pasted on with the Photoshop of Jabba the Hutt from the second movie. Right.
Wow.
And
I did notice in the version I watched with Jabba the Hutt,
yeah,
they it's like maybe rotoscope is the very wrong word, but they like edited around Harrison Ford, and he starts to float around Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
because he's
something
walking on
happens.
his tail. He's
I don't
walking
know
on
what.
his tail. But also, like, that scene is literally almost word for word the same scene that he had with Greedo. So the scene almost makes no sense, like, just in general. Like, it was cut because we already had that scene. We had that scene with Greedo and Han. We don't need to see it again.
So Raymond, Han Solo with Greedo at the cantina. Does he shoot Greedo first, or does Greedo shoot Han?
Ooh, I don't remember. I think Han shoots him first.
Oh, good. That's the way it has to be.
Because George would have you believe otherwise, but you saw the one that he made, so...
Yeah, you still saw it correctly. That's been a huge issue that in later cuts, they've re-edited it to where it looks like Greedo shoots first, and there's like a pew pew ricochet, and then you see Han Solo shoot Greedo. But
they've edited that scene 4 different times.
Yeah.
So real quick.
Good God.
Just talking about shootings real quick. I was very shocked also, specifically about C-3PO and R2-D2, because in those beginning scenes that they're shooting everywhere, they're just casually walking and they don't get hit at all. I'm just like, yo, are these people like just master evaders? Like, what's going on?
Watch Hidden Fortress. It's very similar.
Precise.
Yeah, it was very, very much like that.
Yeah, in Hidden Fortress, it's sometimes. Well, that's a thing. When you're the lowest of the low, sometimes you just blend in with everything else. No one pays attention to you, right? That's why, like, when they got even in the pods, they were about to get shot, and I was like, oh, there are no life forms in there. Don't waste your bullets, basically. So that's a constant thing of just, like, over and over again. It's just like, oh, they're just droids. They don't matter, or servants don't matter, right? That kind of idea.
That's basically what that scene was, yeah. Oh man, that was great. Because
watching it the second time, I was like, oh, I'm C-3PO. Like everything, the mannerisms, the like unnecessary commentary, the like somehow surviving trauma left and right.
Especially the second time watching it, I was just like, yo, if I was R2-D2, I would have left C-3PO's ass in that ship at the beginning.
If I were me, I would have too.
Because not only was he ungrateful, but then when we land, he just decides to go the other way. Like, fuck you, dude.
Can I?
He was scared.
Can I? This is a Dino sidebar. Maybe it's just a quick little comment. You guys use Waze app at all? For the GPS. And like every now and then they do promotional voice downloads. Mm-hmm. So like Arnold Schwarzenegger did one as Terminator, and then
or Oscar Grouch.
What?
Oh, sorry, continue.
Oh, yeah, and in one of them, it was one of the newer Star Wars movies was coming out, and you could download it, and the directions were read by C-3PO. And of course, R2-D2 was just like beep, 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 boop, doing the thing. And I love the Terminator one and the other one, but I kid you not, I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. C-3. I turned it off within like the first 5 minutes. C-3PO was so annoying on Waze, just giving the directions and all that, and like little side commentaries. They had it so perfect in just how annoying C-3PO was. That I was like, I love this, but I'm turning it off. I was like, I could not have.
You missing your exit is 525 to what?
So anyway, that was my little just like side note on C-3PO.
Oh dear, you haven't read. This is a lot of money.
So I guess before we land on final thoughts, does anybody want to ask anything before we go into final thoughts?
I just like asking Raymond shit because he's got the freshest eyes of the movie or movies.
I definitely appreciated it so much more watching it a second time and having watched all the films that I have in the canon. That I go, yeah, like even thinking of like, you know, one day having kids and wanting to watch a movie that we could all appreciate. I'm like, oh, I appreciate this film so much more now. And then watching it with little ones, I just think would be really fun.
Yeah, and all you have to do is not show them the prequels. That's it.
They don't exist.
They don't exist. So now we have landed into final thoughts territory. Don't forget to tell me what are your final thoughts about the movie. Tell us who would you recommend this movie to, and anything else that you would like to include that you feel we didn't cover or you should have talked about. So let's start with the one and only, the number one fan of Star Wars, because she's wearing a shirt, ladies and gentlemen, is Michaela.
Honestly, I mean, if you haven't seen this already, it's like this was like one of the films that got me really into film, you know. So this is always gonna have a special place in my heart. And honestly, like you should watch it with little kids, you know, like that's when the magic's really real. Like you don't really care about the plot twists or the lore or anything. All you see are like the hero. Like there's just some beauty in like watching it with like pure innocence that just can't. And I think that's part of why this generation loves Star Wars so much, is because we were introduced to it as kids, and like that's always gonna have its mark there. So like if you ever have an opportunity to share it with like someone younger, you should.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michaela. Now, Raymond.
Well, I feel like the comment
Yes.
Oh no!
He's frozen in carbonite. That's not in this movie.
No, am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Your voice is back.
Your voice is back, so yeah, go ahead.
No. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, we can
Is
hear
this
you. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
We got you.
I feel like I was just gonna say like my final thoughts were right before we started this segment, but also I was just gonna add that like if you are over the age of 25 and you're watching this for the first time, maybe start with Empire Strikes Back. And I know that sounds probably ludicrous to longtime fans and diehard fans, but I'll say I think that holds up. It's action packed to the way that I think we're accustomed to today. And then I would go and watch A New Hope as like an accompaniment, and then call it a day.
You know what? That's actually pretty damn fair.
Okay, I can respect that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Raymond. Now, Dino.
Okay, La Guerra de las Galaxias is what we called it back in Paraguay. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy the movies even, and I will continue recommending it to people. I'm not like a super fan or anything, and I just recently got into watching some of the Attack of the Clones. No, yes,
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. What's Attack?
Attack of the Clones is the second movie.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Anyway, blah. Yeah. So I'm not like a super fan, but I enjoy this movie and the original trilogy because it takes me back to my childhood. Because watching it on TV and then on tape, and it's in the third one, where Leia kisses Han Solo, like when they're like in the bushes at the end, and she says like, "I love you," and he's like, "I know," and or so.
I remember that.
And as little kids, we rewound that over. We thought that was so funny, and we must have rewound it over and over for like 20, 30 times, because like Han Solo has such a dumbstruck like face after he gets, after she kisses him. Anyway, so the original trilogy, even though of course I wasn't, it wasn't in the theaters when I first watched them, or even for its second release, but I grew up with them, and I would recommend the movies, but I would like to have them as original as possible, because I like the grittiness of, the darkness, everything doesn't have to be perfectly lit, right? And so I enjoy watching things how they were when they first originally came out, with all their flaws, right? So yeah, I would really like to recommend them in their original format, which is almost impossible to do these days. But yeah, what can I say? Like me some Star Wars.
JP.
Oh man, it's crazy because like it's even in the beginning when I said I was gonna just try to review it as its own film, we ended up talking about almost all the other movies, and that's kind of what you do with Star Wars. You jump in and you enjoy the two good ones and all of them. but like it's such a there's. Hold on, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but it literally is just like a classic. It's like one of those films that just works. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but like kind of like how people watch The Wizard of Oz for the first time, or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Both films, like, surface level, nothing too special about them, but like they're classics now. Like it's just literally ingrained into like our culture, and that's what this film did, and it's continuing to do so even now. And sure, the newer Star Wars stuff, I'm not a big fan of, but I'm gonna watch all of them. I'm gonna try my best to watch all of them because I just fucking love this film series. I give it so much shit and crap, but I love these fucking films, and this was my introduction to them. And I thought Raymond's suggestion was pretty damn good. Watching episode 5 then 4, but like just any fan of film, like just a person who wants to experience adventure and just something new, just something that like just on the first watch, so great. Like I would recommend this film to everybody, like especially the young ones. Like this is a great introduction to film. It's a great introduction to storytelling in general. And I so wish to my hearts of hearts like that the originals were released, because I get it. Like I get George Lucas's and Lucasfilm's like mindset, like trying to make these films kind of blend in with the other films a bit more smoothly, and stuff that he couldn't accomplish that he wanted to. Like yes, when he was younger, when this film was first made, he had so many limitations, but look what he fucking created because of it. Like he managed to make gold out of fucking dirt, out of this idea that no one was backing him up for. Like he was like the real underdog in this industry, and everyone was mocking him. No one thought that this film was going to be worth anything, and holy shit, like it became an icon. And I hope he's happy with those fucking 10 billion that Disney gave him.
Were they mocking him though? Was that a thing? I don't remember that being a thing.
No one thought that this movie was gonna amount to anything. Fox, that's why Fox released it. I think like they were about to release it as a Christmas release where no one was gonna watch the movie, but then became a summer blockbuster. Like no one had much faith in this movie. It was gonna be a one-off type deal, another stupid sci-fi But then this basically made what we now know as American cinema, the big Hollywood, like movie. So, I fucking love these movies.
Okie dokie. My final thought, I'm muting everybody because it's noisy, is that Star Wars is absolutely amazing. It's definitely something you gotta watch. I like a lot of the people that grew up in the 90s. I started with the prequels, but I was a young kid, so I didn't really understand stuff. So once I saw it more as a grown-up, I was like, this sucks. And then I actually discovered the gems of the past, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I definitely recommend this movie to everybody. And definitely, it's one of those movies that I won't get tired of watching it like over and over again, but especially watching it with someone that has never watched it before. It's like going to Disney with someone that's never been. You go like, oh my God, I'm gonna look at your face because I want to have that magic in my face too. So it's definitely one of those movies that is definitely better. Like, it's good to watch it alone, but definitely better with company. And it's always a good time. And that's my final thought. I recommend it to everybody. So I guess Dino asked me the question that Jason asks all the time.
What do you have for us next?
Me? I mean, we come together.
He just stepped in, by the way.
Oh, really?
But I have my headphones on, but that would be hilarious. He's just, yeah.
I was going to say, tell him to give his full-length hour review of the movie.
Yeah. Or no, I just wanted, he just walked away, but I would have been like, come on, Jason, say, what do you have for us next, Steve?
So we come together like Rama Lama Lama Dingity Dingity Dong. So Raymond is the next choice. So Raymond, what you got for us next week, man?
So one of my favorite films, I have like 10 favorite films. They hardly ever change.
But wait. Is it from the 70s though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's right. It is right.
I'm just joking. It is.
It's Grease. Yeah.
Go Grease Lightning. Go Grease Lightning. Hey, ha ha, Grease Lightning.
I think I won't be here next week, guys.
Okay. So, Jason, we got. Jason, we got.
Go.
Hey, don't come back. Grease.
That's what we're doing next week, I guess.
I'll save it for next week.
I was just talking about that movie today, and I've never seen it before.
What?
Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, I was getting made fun of for not having seen it ever.
Perfect. Look at the world. Look at the universe.
Beautiful dropout. Go back to high school.
No,
I'm the one that you want. Ooh.
You gotta do this shit. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that in the movie?
Yeah, that's a dance.
And
Bro, I did that dance in third grade.
You saw it in third grade?
Yeah, I did that. That was my mom's favorite movie.
Oh, okay.
I think that was every mom's favorite movie.
Hey-o!
That was my favorite movie, and apparently so much so it was Lion King and Grease. But I watched Grease so much that the VHS tape, the tape itself, just like wore off.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Mom.
All right, well, Michaela, JP, Ray Martino Perez, El Don Dino, Jason Echoes back in right now, and Steve Stevie. We'll catch you next week. Bye.
Hey there, I am Steve Des from Oye Dimelo Network. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please don't forget to subscribe and click any of the videos you see right there, because it will take you to a different path in your life.